Okay, I've got to do things a little bit different with motivation lesson here. I couldn't find my actual PowerPoint, so I've got a PDF file that I'm going to be using. So I'll just kind of move the screen around on it, and then I'll upload the PDF file to Blackboard as well. So you should be able to download it and have the PDF file of the presentation. But we are going to talk about motivation today. I like this little quote by Jack Freemer. That which gives direction, intensity to behavior. So that's motivation. It's that which gives direction and intensity to behavior. So what are those things that give you direction and intensity to what you do or how you behave? All right. So our learning objectives then are to define the terms motivation, including intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Those are going to be the two big ones: intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. We're going to talk about a lot of different motivation theories and a lot of different terms, but the ones that I want you to know for sure are intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. We're also going to describe how motivation influences learning and achievement-related behavior and identify effective ways to motivate learners of all ages. So, motivation. What is motivation? It is an internal process that activates, guides, and maintains behavior over time. It's what gets you going, keeps you going, determines where you're trying to go. So it is really, it's that unseeable aspect, that internal aspect of why you're doing what you're doing. And so obviously people who get up every day and get a lot done and accomplished have very strong motivation, and then likewise people who uh, pretty much don't get out of bed for anything have almost no motivation, or they have a strong motivation for sleep or something. I don't know, but yeah. So the motivation is that internal process, that unseeable component to why you do the things that you do. All right. So behavioral learning theory. Okay, think back to behaviorism, and the rewards and punishment, or rewards and reinforcement aspect of behaviorism. We want to change somebody's behavior. We reward positive behaviors to reinforce those, or we punish negative behaviors to get them to change from those negative behaviors. So I'm going to talk about a couple different scenarios then, and how motivation plays into behavioral learning theory. So scenario number one, Mr. Scrooge offers Bill $60 to paint his fence. Bill thinks this is more than enough for the job, so he does his best work. He's like, yes, $60. I'm going to paint this fence. I'm going to do a good job on painting this fence. However, when he's done, Mr. Scrooge says, I don't think he did $60 worth of work. Here's $50. What kind of motivations are taking place in this scenario? I'm going to pause for a second to let you kind of process it for a minute. So obviously, Bill was motivated to paint the fence and do the best job he could because he was going to get $60. So there was that outside influence of getting cash and $60 and it being more than enough, and so he was motivated to paint that fence. But then Scrooge says, no, you didn't do $60 worth of work. Here's $50. Now what kind of motivation is taking place? Obviously, if Scrooge comes back and says, hey, I have this other job for you, or I want another fence painted, or something like that, Bill's probably not going to be motivated to do the work for Scrooge because he did not have a positive experience with the first time that he painted a fence for Scrooge. So it's kind of a motivation to not work for Scrooge because of the negative reinforcement that came along with it. So now consider the same situation. So now we're on scenario number two. Now, same situation. Scrooge needs his fence painted, but he offers Bill $40, and Bill says, "Yeah, man, $40 sounds great." So he still has that external motivation to go out and do it. That that influence that's coming out and saying, okay, here's cash. I'm gonna do this job. I'm gonna get cash. $40, fantastic. So Bill does his best work, and when Bill gets finished, Scrooge praises him for an excellent job and gives him $50. So now what kind of motivation is taking place? So obviously we had the original motivation of, yes, I'm going to do the work for $40 and it's going to be good work and I'm going to be happy with it. Scrooge really likes it, gives him even more money, $10 over what he originally promised him. So a tip, if you will, for doing great work. Now, the next time Scrooge needs some work done or needs another fence painted or something else, and he calls up Bill, is Bill going to be motivated to come back and do more work for him? Most likely. If he knows that he's going to get the money he feels like he deserves plus money, he's going to be willing to come back and help Scrooge with whatever he needs. So still making the same amount of money. He's still making $50 in scenario 2 versus scenario 1. The difference is the situation in which that $50 was created. And so you gotta, when it comes to motivation, especially motivation with students, you gotta think about how these motivating factors are being presented to the students, and then what kind of consequences are going to happen after the fact. So you don't want to try to motivate students with something and then say, oh, well, you didn't do quite as good as I wanted you to, so we're not going to get all of what you were promised. That never goes over well with any student or anybody in any situation, especially when they feel like they've done the best work that they can do. So just keep that in mind as you think about motivation and the classroom. All right, so now we're going to talk about Dave and Barbara. They meet at a party. They like each other immediately, and after the party, take a long walk in the moonlight. Things seem like they're going great. So when they get to Barbara's house, Dave says, Barbara, I enjoyed spending time with you. Here's $50 I'd like you to have. What's happening here? Obviously, we have some motivations that Dave was motivated to give Barbara $50 because he really enjoyed spending time with her. I'm not sure what the $50 is for, but yeah, he said, "Great time, enjoyed spending time with you. I want to give you something to say thanks for spending the time." And so he obviously was motivated to do that because of the good time they had. And then whether or not Barbara had enjoyed the evening, she may be willing to spend more time with Dave in the future if she knows he's going to pay for things or give her money and those kind of things. And so we have that external motivation there as well. All right, so let's look at scenario 4. Marta's aunt offers her $50 to teach little Peepa how to play baseball next Saturday. However, if Marta agrees to do so, she will miss her chance to try out for the school baseball team. What do you think is going to happen in this scenario? So this is really where motivation starts to take a different type of shape, right? So we have that external factor of $50. Marta might want 50 bucks. She might need it for some reason. It might be enough to motivate her to teach people how to play baseball next Saturday. However, if Marta is so good at playing baseball that she could teach somebody and make money doing it for $50, she probably really enjoys it. And so if she really enjoys being able to play baseball, she might not want to miss out on her chance to try out for the school baseball team. And so this is going to be kind of the foundation for extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. So remember that scenario as we get to that part of the lesson, and that you have external motivations and internal motivations. And so this is a great way to play that example together of that external motivation of $50 or the internal motivation of I really love to play baseball. And so it comes down to which is stronger, or which has a bigger impact on Marta herself, or the needs that she has. Obviously, if she has no food or shelter and goes back to those things that are lacking in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, $50 may be enough for her to say, okay, yeah, I'm going to do that because I need the money. But if all those needs are satisfied monetarily already, and she doesn't have a need to buy food or shelter or anything like that, that internal motivation may take over, and she may want to skip teaching people how to play baseball so that she can try out for her baseball team. All right, so attribution theory. Attribution theory is another motivational theory. Explores how individuals attribute causes to events and behavior. And so this is the primary theory behind the locus of control. Locus is location. So the location of control for an individual. And so it's a personality trait that determines whether people attribute responsibility for their own failure or success to internal or external factors. So, are you successful because you made yourself successful? Or are you a failure because you didn't do what you needed to do to have success? Or were those successes and failures dependent on something outside of you? You didn't have any control over it, and it was really just mere luck, good luck or bad luck, that put you in the circumstances that you're in. So that's locus of control. And so it's how you perceive how you came about your own success or failures and how that happened. Was it by matter of luck, or did you have influence on your own success? And so, thinking about locus control, if you will go to this link, you can probably type it in. I know if you download the PDF I'm going to upload, you should be able to click on it. But click on it, it's going to take you to a locus of control test. Alright, and you can go ahead and do that right now and then come back to the lesson, or finish the lesson and do it later. But I suggest you do it because it'll be a good way for you to look at what locus control is. It's going to give you a little bit more information on it, and it's going to tell you what you tend to prefer. If you truly believe that you have an external locus control, or that your success is dependent upon the luck in the world, or if it's a more your luck is based off your own efforts, and you basically decide how successful you're going to be. So it's going to give you a lot of information on that. So definitely go to the link, take the test. It's like 40 questions, I think. It'll probably take you 10 minutes, maybe 15 if you have to really stop and think about how to answer some of the questions. So it shouldn't take real long to take it, but like I said, it's some good information on locus of control, and then how you perceive your own locus of control. Alright, so again, when you go and do the locus of control test, if you have a low score, it's going to be an external locus of control, and a high score is going to be an internal locus of control, just so you know. Alright, so expectancy theory. This is another motivational theory. This is, so it's got a formula with it, as you already see. Motivation equals expectancy times value. So the theory is based on the belief that people's efforts to achieve depend on their expectations of reward. So the higher the value, the higher the expectation for their success. That's all goes into motivation. So their efforts are going to be dependent upon the type of reward that they get, or what they're expected to get. And so if they expect to get $100 for doing a job, for doing a job that they typically would only get $50 for, obviously they're going to be a lot more motivated to do that job. Or vice versa, if it's a job you'd normally get $50 for, and based on what they found out they can only expect to get $15, they might not be as motivated to do that job. And that's kind of a extreme example with money, but it's really the value of what they expect to get for doing whatever it is that they are asked to do, or thinking about doing. That determines how much effort that goes into what they do. So, a lot of times when you look at students in a classroom and you talk about grades, if they expect to get a grade, that may or may not be enough to give them enough motivation to put out effort. Not everybody is driven by grades. And so you can say, oh, this is an easy task. You're going to be able to get 100 on it, and that may not mean anything to a student. They may say, well, as long as I get a 70, that's all I care about. And so they expect to get a 70, so they put out the effort for a 70 versus 100. Likewise, if you can talk about what external things outside of a grade or internal accomplishments that student may get for doing a job well done, that might motivate them to do better if they have a higher expectancy of what to get out of that task. So achievement motivation. This is a desire to experience success and to participate in activities in which success depends on personal effort and abilities. So these people who are motivated through achievement, they want to be successful, and they want to experience success, and they want to be able to participate in activities where they can be successful through their own personal efforts and abilities. So mastery goals of students who are motivated primarily by desire for knowledge and self-improvement. They want to just be really good at something. All right, so I know that I want to, I have a desire for knowledge, I have a desire for self-improvement. I want to master these goals and be good, have them down. Or performance goals of students who are motivated primarily by desire to gain recognition from others and to earn good grades. So performance goals, are people who are motivated through performance, are basically just wanting people to give them a pat on the back and say, good job, you were awesome. These people are definitely the ones who go after the A grades and those kind of things. Whereas mastery goal, they're not so worried about getting an A on a assignment so much as they're wanting to know that they were able to master the skills or the content that goes along with it. So they're not worried about the grade itself. They're worried about what they're going to get out of it. Whereas performance people want the A so they can hold up the A and say, hey, look how smart I am, how good I am. Everybody, revel in my brilliance. All right, so all of this that we've talked about really kind of is shaped around these ideas of intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. And if you'll go back and re-listen to this lesson, after I talk to you about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation, you'll hear some of those pieces that were discussed and how they might fit into these two areas. And so intrinsic motivation focuses on how enjoyable or valuable a task is. And so it's that motivation that comes from the internal side of a person. They're motivated to do it because they want to do it, because they're interested in doing it, because it's part of who they are internally and as a person and as an individual. And so that is that intrinsic or internal motivation, whereas extrinsic motivation focuses on the goal or the reward or the behavior, which really falls back into the components of behaviorism that we were talking about earlier, in that I'll do this, but what am I going to get out of it? Am I going to get an A? Am I going after that A? Am I going to get $50? Am I going to get a high five? Am I going to get my name on the wall? Am I going to get to be president and have power? Like those external factors that might motivate an individual to do something. So the first one, intrinsic, is the internal. So when it comes to school or education, it's I really enjoy animal science, and so I want to know everything there is to know about animal science because I'm intrigued by it and it's interesting. And I'm not worried about what grade I get. I'm probably going to get an A because I'm actually interested in this stuff and I want to learn about it. But I don't care. If I get a B, whatever, I'm learning about stuff I want to learn about. Whereas extrinsic motivation may be, hey, I'm motivated to learn this because I'm going after that A, or I'm going after a scholarship, or I want to be the valedictorian of my class, or some sort of external motivation that can be held up and propped up in front of everybody. And so there's two very different types of motivation, but they've kind of fit into everything we've talked about so far in different aspects. So I I don't have any. This is the last slide, so I'm going to leave it here. But extrinsic motivation is not a bad thing. It can be good. Obviously, intrinsic motivation, if you can find what intrinsically motivates a student, you've got that student hooked on your content and in your class, and you can really take them to new heights. But sometimes, I don't know many people who really just enjoy math or some people who don't enjoy English. Sometimes you have to find extrinsic motivation to get students involved with some of these content. And when you look at what we teach in ag education, we actually teach a lot of math and science and even English within our classes. And so sometimes you have to find some extrinsic motivation to get those students involved in what you're doing. And really, it can be a gateway to intrinsic motivation. So extrinsic motivation can lead to intrinsic motivation. If a student has no experience with the content whatsoever, they may not be intrinsically motivated to learn anything in your class. And so you may have to get some intrinsic motivation going in order to get them involved. Once they get involved, they might find out that they really love it, and they shift from being extrinsically motivated to intrinsically motivated. So again, for moving forward, you need to know a little bit about everything we talked about, but the main thing to know, to take away from this lesson, is the differences in between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. If you understand those differences and what that is, then you'll be fine on exams and whatnot moving forward. But that is all for motivation. Thanks for listening.